Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's Darkest Timeline. And unfortunately, this one is a little more of a darker timeline. I get a little bit grumbly on this one, I'm afraid. It starts strong with a big grumble, lots of swearsies. Oh, oof. I feel it picks up after that. I feel it gets better. I'm talking sports days, Father's Days, body fat percentages and the myths, TV movies, lots of computer games, all of the good stuff, and everything in between. Before we get started, please do consider like, share, subscribe, and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. The biggest one, the one that we truly love the most, is share the podcast around. Please, please, please. Right, let's get started. Here we go. This is CookieCast, the Darkest Timeline. Hello. How you doing? I don't think the dog appreciated that hello. I said hello and he did a big sigh. Like, ugh, here we go again. I'm going to listen to this horse shit for the next 90 minutes. I think, really, we all feel that way. How are we doing today, this week, this life? I am having a right old time of it. Something is out of whack. And I think maybe we'll discover what that might be over the next hour or so. How are we all doing? Usual rules apply. If you're not doing great, drop me a line and we can discuss. So, quite a lot on the list. Having reread the list, not a lot to go through. So, bit of a weird one. Like, there's like TV, movies, games, and a load of stuff from the last week. But I don't think any of them are really going to take a lot long to get through. So, let's find out. I have talked about this subject before, but I would like to talk about it again for reasons which will become apparent. You know, when you go in the doctors, I know that's a foreign concept these days, but let's just pretend that you, who is listening to this right now, has been to the doctors in the last 5 years. And inevitably, at some point, your eyes will fall on the notice about how doctor surgeries employ a zero tolerance policy, and they don't come to work to be abused, and they'll refuse to deal with you, and I'm sure there's some mention about like involving the police if necessary, and all of this. Isn't it interesting how that's very much a one-way street? I don't go out into the world to be treated like something somebody stepped in. But if I did, I know exactly where I can go to get that kind of service. And it's absolutely a doctor's surgery. So, let's talk. About 3 weeks ago, I had the misfortune of being informed I needed to go into a doctor's surgery. Now, this is the first time in many moons, and I was like, okay, fine, and off I toddled. And I got there, and it was a ghost town. There wasn't a single person there, including at the reception desk, bearing in mind somebody had just been seen. It's almost like the person that was like dealing with the person saw me coming and like did a fucking runner. So they've got a bell on the counter, and I gave the bell a little ding, and nothing. And I waited a good couple of minutes, and then I was like, okay, the system's clearly not working, so I'm going to have to give it a bigger ding, which was met with the standard just a minute. I was like, yes, don't let me stop you from having a fucking whale of a time out the back, laughing and joking and talking horse shit. I'd hate for you to actually do any fucking work today. I'll just stand here and continue to wait. And 30 seconds to a minute later, what can only be described as Proto-Karen battle axe sidles up to the counter like it's the single worst thing she's ever had to do, and proceeds to barely be able to form words to communicate with me. Where are you? I was like, I've spoken to a doctor on the phone, and they've asked me to come in. Do you know who you're supposed to? No, I've no idea. Right. Whose date of birth? So I gave him a date of birth. Right. Take a seat. It's like, fuck me, I am sorry that I pulled you away from dicking around and doing fuck all with your day. I really do apologise that you might actually have to do 14 seconds of fucking work today. Please, let me allow you to get back to doing sweet fuck all, shall I? Now, when I say these things, I do appreciate that that is probably not the case, and I'm sure that they are very busy dealing with all the people that aren't there. I'm sure there is some system which involves the many people working there, to have to deal with all the people that aren't there in some other way. So I do understand, and that was that. And off I went. A few minutes later, I went to see the doctor, and that was that. And then I left, and that was that. Then I had to contact the doctor again. Now, I'm pretty sure I've informed you of this information already. What I've just been through, I'm pretty sure I've informed you of this already. I had to go to the doctor's again. I go off to the doctor's. The doctor's like, let's give you some more tablets and, a dressing and this, that, and the other, and send you on your way. And I was like, all right, cool. But I had to see 2 medical professionals, and the second one was like, is there any chance you can come back in a couple of days? And I was like, I don't see why not. And they were like, can you come on this day at this time? And I was like, no, I can't. They were like, all right, okay, what about this day, this time? And I was like, yeah, it's just about doable, I think. They were like, oh, we can do it really early if that's better. I was like, that would be perfect, yes. So I was like, right, I'll make that work. I was like, oh, where do you want me to go? Do you want me to come here or somewhere else? Because the last time I went to a different doctor's. And they were like, oh, this one is a completely different doctor's that you've never been to before. I'm like, right, okay, cool. It's very much like the vets. I'm a member of a vet that has multiple locations. But the one I signed up to, I never get to go to. I have to go to every other location. Anyway, just a minor gripe there. So, I'm like, right, I've never been to this doctor's surgery before. Leon was like, oh, just bear in mind, they don't have any parking. I was like, okay, well, I know the area, and I know there's no fucking parking nearby. She was like, no, it's fine, just go down the road that it's on, and then turn down the side of them, and just park up there, it'll be fine. Park outside someone's house. I was like, yeah, because people love that shit. I was like, right, whatever. So set off as early as possible, because it was going to be like rush hour, and I darted across, and I parked up, and I shot down the road, And as I was walking into the car park, I was like, there was all these signs up in the car parks for doctors only. So no surprise that every single vehicle that was parked in the car park was one of the Volvo tanks. I was like, well, there we go, ladies and gents. The Audi for the new generation. So, I walk through the door, and immediately there is a sign that says, please wait behind this sign to be called to the counter. And that's what I do, but it's quite a tight fit. I'm like, I hope nobody comes in behind me, because we are going to be, I don't know a nice way of saying it. And then I hear someone coming. I was like, okay, well, at least somebody's sort of acknowledging that there is someone here, because yet again, nobody in the waiting room, as there wouldn't be, nobody at the counter. So I'm like, how will somebody know I'm here? And somebody came to the counter, and I went, oh, for fuck's sake. Because it was the same Proto-Karen battle axe from the other surgery from 2 weeks before. I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. Now then, I just want to make sure we're all holding a piece of information in our minds. And that information is that there is a sign the minute you step through the door that says, please wait behind this sign to be called to the counter. I go to the counter. I was like, here we go. This should be good. I was like, maybe she was having a bad day the other day. Oh, maybe not. I was like, I've an appointment at 8:30 to see someone. No, it's with. It's like, no, I don't know who it's with. Right. You got a date of birth? So I told him my date of birth. Right, take a seat. As I go to sit down, I'm like, fuck this fucking cunt. I sit down. Somebody comes through the door immediately, and they said, I'm here to do your cat testing. And the battle axe behind the counter went, oh, really? Oh, that's great. Yeah, come on through. I'll let you through. Just go through there. I'll let you through. Yeah, that's wonderful. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Somebody who is not a patient of this surgery, somebody who's come to do a job. Apparently, you've suddenly decided to start treating people like human beings. Well, isn't that a fucking delight? Sat opposite me is all the billboard stuff, and directly in front of where I'm sat is the zero tolerance poster about how doctors, surgeries, and the staff operate a zero policy. I was like, yeah, it'd be real nice if we, the public, could do the same. And just another couple of posters over, there was the thing about whether you'd had good service or not. And I was like, I am tempted to get onto that right now and be like, good service? You're having a fucking laugh, aren't you? Now then, these would have been the end of this. But the battle axe, having let this guy through to do the cat testing, comes out into the waiting room and walks over to a monitor that was essentially round the corner from where the sign was and the front of the counter was, and over-exaggerates, tapping on the monitor because it's one of the screens where you can check yourself in for an appointment. You know, the sort of screen that would be really good to have front and centre when you get to a doctor's surgery, rather than round the fucking corner. At which point, she exclaims to the entire room, bearing in mind the room is empty, apart from me, oh, it is working. half turns over her shoulder, and then wanders off back into a fucking cave. And I was like, yeah. I bet you're a fucking delight outside of this place. I bet you're a fucking laugh a minute. I bet your husband, I bet he's just the happiest man on the face of this earth. And I bet dollars to fucking donuts, one of those fucking cunt wagons out the front is one of yours. You absolute fucking... It's not fucking necessary. It's not necessary. I'm sorry that at some point in time, I don't know, around about 5 years ago, somebody decided to tell you that you didn't have to do any work anymore. I am sorry to be the person to burst that bubble and break your silence and actually have to get you to do something which involves you tapping a couple of keys on a keyboard. I sincerely apologise. But fucking Norma. The whole time I just sat there like, I'm going to go on that thing and just be like, why is this an okay way to treat people? Why is this okay? Why is this acceptable? Let's talk body fat percentages, because that'll really lighten the mood, shall we? Recently, I decided to look into body fat percentages. You know, the truest way to measure absolutely nothing. Now, honestly, it was a bit of a shits and giggles kind of thing. But you know what they say? It's all shits and giggles until someone... Yeah, you know the rest. Body fat percentage is bullshit. You get the whole athletes get told they're obese, etc. But I thought let's have a little funsy. Now, at the point in time that I did the calculator, I didn't have all the measurements. So I guessed, because I know how old I am, and I know how tall I am. Do I know what the circumference of my neck is? No. Do I know the waist measurement? No, but I know what my jeans are. Apparently, two fucking different things. So I guessed. I was like the measurements again. It was like, is your neck a foot, 1 foot 3 inches? I was like, I have no idea. I'm gonna say no. I don't know. And it was like, what's your waist? And I was like, well, I know what my jeans are, so I'll put that in. Turns out that's not how you work out your waist measurement. Anyway, it then came back with a result and told me that my body fat percentage was a particular number, and then proceeded to tell me that to be the height and age and things like that, I needed to put on 1.5 kilograms of weight to be average. And I was like, that is hilarious. I told everyone that would listen, mostly my eldest daughter and Leon. So a few days later, I was in a conversation with Leon. I was like, hey, let's get the tape measure and do the body fat thing. Body fat percentage. She was like, I don't want to do that. And I was like, I do. So I found a what I would refer to as like a clothing tape measure. And I did the measurements. This was where things started going wrong fast. So turns out the measurements that I'd put in were wrong. And they were way under, as they would be. Didn't know that about jeans. Your jeans are often smaller than your waist, because your waist is measured elsewhere. Don't see how that makes sense, but sure, whatever. So, put all the information in, height and age. neck circumference and waist, and it said that I was nearly twice as much as my original, and hugely overweight. And I was like, fuck you, body fat percentage. So that will come in play later when we talk about something else, because I'm doing stuff in order. So just bear that in mind, and we'll come back to it. A couple of times a year that are quite difficult for me as a parent, having multiple children. Now, having children is quite a fluid thing, in the sense that things are often moving, like constantly moving. The times and dates and holiday, all of these different things move. There's a lot of constants, but those constants moved. For example, last year I had double sports day. I had 3 children to go and see at sports day over 2 days. Boom. Well, one of my children left that school last year. Still did double sports day this year. Because my middle daughter, she obviously moved up here. So into a different sports day group, whatever you want to call it. So still had to do the 2 sports days. So off we take ourselves to sports day number 1. Told my youngest daughter that if she didn't win, to not come home. And if she did come home, she absolutely wouldn't be getting fed. And apparently that's not how we parent, said quite a few people. So, bearing all this in mind, I have to apparently, change my parenting style. I jest, obviously. And by jest, I mean I used that joke about 50 times on the day and the next day, because, I'm hilarious. My youngest daughter said to me, she was like, Daddy, I really want to win. And I said, well, then try hard. Obviously, I went on to say, I was like, look, Daddy, just try and focus on what you're trying to do and do your best. And, go as quickly as you can and as safely as you can. And, all the things where you're like, if you want to win, darling, try and win. Now, what I will say is this. Last year, she was there, she was doing the sports day, but she wasn't really. She was with the freaking fairies. They'd shout go, and she'd be stood at the start line looking around like, what are we doing? And I'm like, well, you're losing this race. They're winning. And it was one of those, like, we walked away from it and she was like, I'm sad I didn't win. I'm like, you didn't even start half of the races until the other ones had finished. Maybe think about that next time. People say I'm too tough. Anyway, the phrase, it's not the winning that matters, it's taking part. That's absolute horseshit. Why would you take part if it's not to win? It makes no sense. Apparently all these are outdated theories. And as a winner myself, no, that's not it. It's that other thing. Anyway, it's all good fun. And as it was, she had 2/3 and a second of 4 races. The 4th one was a participation. So, yay. But I'm like, you did really well. Like, you did really well. You got 2/3 and a second out of like 6 or 7 kids. You focused, you tried hard, you did it, you carried on when, like, one of the races is the fucking sack race. I mean, what a ball ache. And the other one was egg and spoon on the windiest day of the year so far. I'm like, plastic egg, plastic spoon, gale force winds. yeah, let's do this. I was super proud. I was super impressed. I was one of those, when you've seen a child do a thing and you're like, this is not going by last year, going by, the year as a, the things that you've seen, the dance recitals you've been to, the Christmas plays you've been to, the whatever. You expect a similar performance. That was absolutely not the case. She absolutely bossed it, and I was like, yeah, good on you, well done. I was really proud. She was happy because she's got a couple of threes and a two. And I'm like, yeah, great stuff. Something that I thought was interesting was, obviously, I left sports day, took myself off to work. I get to work and people are like, oh, how did she get on at sports day? And I'm like, yeah, a couple of thirds and a second. And they're like, oh, wow, that's really good. And I'm like, yeah, I think so. I thought she did really. I was really happy for her. I was really impressed. And then I'd go and sit down, and then the person next to me would be like, how did she get on at sports day? I'm like, yeah, she did good. So that was that. Sports day 1 complete. Fast forward 24 hours, and we're back. Sports day 2. Now we're talking the bigger children. Here's where the problems come in. My daughter has only just gone up into this group. So she is in the younger end, she's first, essentially. And then you have to sit through 3 more years of children that aren't yours, who proceed to do all of the same races that your child just did. And you're sat in direct sunlight, blazing down on you, and you think, I have the smallest bladder in the world at the moment because I have nothing in my system that holds liquid, so I just pee constantly, so I'm not going to take a drink with me. And about 13 minutes into the process, you immediately regret your decision. So that's what you've got going on. Also, you're there going, only another 200 more children to go, and then we get to actually cheer. I do think they should break these things down. You've got 5 weekdays to work with, and you've got 7 years, 8 years maybe. There's like the preschool, reception, and then year 1 to 6. So 8 to deal with, 5 days. Get all the really little ones done on a Monday, and then do one that's 2 a day, and then the rest each get a year, and you're there for an hour. Job done. But no, can't do that. Race 1. Here we go. My daughter sets off, and she just sets off like a rocket, blasts through, gets the win. I'm like, okay, I guess we came to party. The woman who sat next to me, I did that thing where, when you're like, I don't want to leave a seat because that looks obvious, but I don't necessarily want to sit next to somebody I don't know. So now what do I do? And in the end, I was like, man up. I sat down next to this lady, and that was that. And I cheered for my daughter as she went past, and she won. And the lady sat next to me went, was that your daughter? And I said, yes, it was. She was like, did she win? I was like, pretty sure she did. She was like, brilliant. She was really fast. I was like, yes, she was. And me and this lady became fast friends. And we had a whale of a time at Sports Day. So that was that. And then the realization kicked in. Oh, now we sit and wait. And admittedly, obviously, my daughter's got these friends, and then there's other children that are connected to one or, one of each of my children. My youngest daughter was there watching, so I could wave at her and try and communicate with her across the field and stuff. So, not the dog's running in his sleep. Hilarious. Not the worst, but at the same time, not the best. And then another race came round, and I think it was basically you've got egg and spoon and sack race. They didn't do the obstacle race because obviously we've got to make time. Got to free up all the time for the Year 6 fancy dress race. Now, last year, my eldest daughter took part in this and she won it. Cool. I know one child in Year 6 at this point in time, and the fancy dress race is an absolute waste of everybody's time. The kids don't take it seriously. The parents don't care. It's a waste of time. But they made sure to say to you, unless it's an emergency, please don't leave. Oh, okay, I'll stay then, yeah. For this piss take. Time waste piss take. So a little bit of sourness at the end. But great to see my children try hard, work hard and achieve. And that is always the highlight of these things, even when there's a series of real downsides to it. But, you know, take the rough with the smooth, don't you? So, coming back to body fat percentages, having told anybody that would listen that I was in this really low body fat percentage, and obviously being at that low body fat percentage put me into like a very small percentage of people out there in the world, it was for fuck's sake. So I reevaluated. I was like, hang on a minute. How hard would it be to get down to that body fat percentage? Presumably you just have to drop a bit of waist, drop a bit of neck. Okay, well, you know, honestly, I've been thinking that I've been looking a bit, I don't know. Like, I've got this thing, like, over a series of days, over a few days, I can end up putting on a few pounds, and then I have a day of fasting, and it's gone. Well, great. What am I achieving at this point in time? And, you know, doing the high-protein diet, trying to, build the muscle back up from all that time of fasting and losing muscle that way. High protein, low everything else, almost to non-existent levels. Protein. I was Googling today to work out if you can add protein powder to a protein shake and have your body still absorb what would be some ridiculous number, like 60 grams of protein in one go. Apparently the answer is yes and no. So that was helpful. So I was like, okay. I'm coming up to doing a fast, a day fast. But, you know, I am not adverse to a fast. So maybe let's do 2 days and just see what results. Because if day 1 dropped the 4 pounds necessary to get back to the golden zone, the area we want to be, will another day drop more weight at this point in time, having had this break from it? Or not? If not, it's a day I've lost. If so, that'll be interesting. And secretly, I knew that would drop me to the absolute lowest weight. So that's what I did. I did a day's fast, dropped 4 pounds, job done. I did another day, dropped another pound. So boom, lowest weight. Not ever. And there's a picture of me that exists somewhere where I'm pretty sure in that picture I weigh in the region of about 12 stone, maybe less. And I look anorexic. Like, seriously anorexic. So, like I say, not the lowest weight ever, but certainly the lowest in 15 years, more. So, there we go. I dropped a pound. Great time. Everyone's happy. obviously dropping a pound after a day's additional fast, and like I say, being used to doing this whole fasting malarkey, does this mean I could drop another pound for another day? Well, let's find out, shall we? So I ended up doing, now then, I think it'll be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which brings us to today. Over that time, I managed to drop another 4, well, technically another 3 from that point, 4 in total, and the 4 from the first day, so 8 in total. However, when I checked this morning, I was showing that I'd lost 5 pounds between last Monday and this Monday. Just thought it was interesting, all in all. I was like, this is good. I'm liking this. I can work with this. Drop a few pounds, do it full fast, blah, 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 blah. Set a new low, set a new goal. Still crushing plenty of protein by doing it through protein shakes. Protein shake. Still doing the other side of fasting. It's all liquid, all of that. Last night, I started watching a variety of different videos on YouTube that were basically talking about things like body fat percentage and how it's bullshit, how achieving your 20, 15, 10% body fats, what they look like, how achievable they are, how difficult it is, how basically at 10% body fat you have to give up basically life. To achieve 10% body fat, you have to give up just life. You have to essentially, outside of working and maybe sleeping, that's it. It's eating the dullest, blandest shit and working out. And that's it. That's your life. And there was a lot of there's very little time for family stuff. There's very little time for this, very little time for that. You're always tired. You're always hungry. You're always grumpy. And when I heard this combination of things, I went, that is absolutely not an option for me. So I'll tell you what the goal was. The goal was, I'd seen a thing that said, if you can get to 20% body fat, you can start to see the top set of abs. Now, I'll reveal this secret to you lovely people, which is, I've massively increased the amount of core work I've been doing recently. Along with a few other things. I've been working on pull-ups. I've been doing a lot of ab work and core work and all of this. I've been trying to fine-tune a lot of my workout that I already do to get the absolute best, like things like arching the back for bench press, holding at certain points, holding, like pushing, all this, that, and the other. Like pulling the chest and all sorts of stuff to just try and maximize. But one of the key things is I've been focusing on the core, because working on the principle of dropping weight or body weight, body percentage, the idea was you add that to the core work, might get to see a couple of abs, possibly. And I had it in my head that I was well on my way. I was like, I think there's some sort of definition working its way in from like the side, and there's like this situation going on. I don't know whether that's the start of like the top set of abs. I'm touching it now to try and sort of go for a descriptive thing. Then I watched this series of videos. It's like these videos came out of the mist with a, dude, this is not a thing. It's just not achievable. It's not possible. There was all these hey, you can be 20% body fat and be happy, or 10% body fat and be miserable. You can be 15% body fat and be miserable. And it was all this. And in the end, by the time I went to bed last night, I was like, I'm glad I'm weighing in the morning, because honestly, I think I'm fucking done with this shit. And honestly, I weighed in this morning before a run. I was down, like I say, 5 pounds from last Monday. Great. I weighed in after my run, and my first weigh-in, I weighed exactly the same amount. And I went, you absolutely fucking did not. Moved the scales, readjusted, and dropped 0.4 of a pound. So, you know. Cool. And then today, I had lunch. I had fruit after my lunch. I had protein, like so much freaking protein this evening. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say between getting home and the time I'd finished my tea, I'm gonna say I'd had 100 grams of protein. And then after my tea, I was like, do you know what? I can afford. I've been like putting it all into one of them apps, and I looked and it was like, I think it said I had something like, honestly, something silly like 2,000 calories left. And I was like, yeah, fuck it. I'm going to have a tiny little treat. So honestly, at this point in time, I imagine if I stepped on the scales tomorrow morning, I'd be some ridiculous number, but I don't even think I'm going to bother. I'm going to have today as a fuck you to the body fat percentage bullshit, and I'm going to have tomorrow as a time to get back on the horse, and then I think I'll see where it's at on Wednesday. But I will say this much. It's made me fucking miserable. It's made me grumpy as fucking hell. I've been effing and jeffing. As you may have seen off the back of this podcast, I've been effing and jeffing. Everything's wrong with the world. I've been a grumpy fucking sausage. I've been fucking miserable because I had this goal. I had this goal that I was trying to achieve. And then a load of people on YouTube turned up and were like, nah, mate, it's not for you. It's just not possible. Why are you even bothering? It's not for you. And I went, cool, thanks for that. So that was that. Yesterday was Father's Day. Such a double-edged sword. Got up. Let me rewind for a second. Woke up to my youngest children, two of them, stood at the side of the bed saying, Happy Father's Day. Aww, I hear you say. When you open your eyes to this, it's a little bit more like, what the fuck? And then you go, oh, morning. Yeah, thank you. Oh, bless you. Thank you. Oh, let's have a hug. Oh, now go away. That was how I started my day. I got up nice and early and took the dog for a walk. I had a shower and got dressed, but, I didn't know if you needed to know that bit. Took the dog for a walk and got back nice, timely fashion. And then I took my son to football, which was good. He did amazing football for most of it. And then we got back in the car and we came back. And then we went off to pick the older children up. At which point I went, the zombie child. Wonderful. Who could have possibly predicted that my eldest daughter would turn up like a fucking zombie? Oh, that's right. Absolutely fucking everybody. And knowing how late my daughter is able to stay up and be completely functional the next day. I can only hazard a guess at just quite how late she went to bed the night before. But anyway, it's not like it affected any part of the day when she was miserable for the morning, and I don't think there was a moment in time where she stopped yawning. Anyway, let's move on. Now then, Leanne was like, hey, let's go to the Air Museum. I was like, we've done the Air Museum. She was like, yeah, but the boy, he didn't go to the Air Museum. We just took the girls. I was like, yeah, and he might like the planes. I was like, yeah, and he might not. And then it's a waste of fucking time. She was like, oh. And then she was like, we might struggle to go anyway because tickets are limited. I was like, yeah, it's the kind of place you take your dad, isn't it? Father's Day. Air Museum. She was like, no. Turns out there is a 60s, 70s and 80s vintage car and bike show on. And I went, I'm sorry, what? Get those tickets now. So off we went to the Air Museum. Now I personally love the Air Museum. It's a place that it just speaks to my heart. I don't know how to explain it. I love planes. I love the eras. Every part of it. I feel some sort of kinship. I used to go there as a child. My auntie's dad used to volunteer there, and he used to take me with him, and it was just a place I really enjoyed going, spending time, and that's carried on into adulthood. I also really like classic cars, and I don't mind the odd motorbike or two. So I knew I was going to be in hog heaven for this one. The issue would come that I didn't think anyone else would be. However, having said about the zombie child, my eldest daughter does have the ability to sort of zero in on the things that sort of like, I think she could see that this was something that I was going to enjoy. So I think she was like, hey, let's go and enjoy this together. And really, come on, Father's Day. It's one day kind of thing. So there were points when like the little guys were like, they wanted lunch at like 11:30, this sort of thing. And I wanted to look at everything. So I was a bit like, I'm going to go and look at stuff. And my elders were like, do you want to go and look at stuff on your own? I was like, not necessarily. You can come with me if you want. She was like, yeah. So off we went to look at just some of the most gorgeous cars that have been meticulously maintained, looked after, all those sorts of things. It was, I was absolutely loving it. I was able to impart small pieces of knowledge for my limited knowledge about cars and things, cars of a generation. Obviously, a lot of cars from my generation being cars from the 80s. There's a good selection of American vehicles. There was, my favourite was the Dodge Demon that they had there. There was a Ford Mustang, Ford F100, E-Type Jag. Just phenomenal. They had some cool bikes. Definitely more of the vintage motorbike. But then there was the odd sort of really cool one. Lots of classic British cars. A couple of Mark 1 Escort, XR3i, that sort of thing. So just absolute bangers. The Air Museum seems to change every time you go. Like for years it was just the same thing, and then it seems to change every time we go. They've got a park now, so the little guys were actually like, we're fine, there's a park. they all got an ice cream. That was entertaining because they were holy shit expensive. With also, my son decided he wanted my youngest daughter's ice cream immediately, and he didn't want his. So you could imagine how that went. We stuck it out for a while. That's one of those. I'd have stayed till the end of time, I think, just looking and drooling and being like, "This is fucking great." But you have to also appreciate, not for everyone. So, sort of 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we departed and came home. I had some lovely gifts, really nice gifts. I had some really nice cards. Some of those cards were handmade, which obviously are very nice. And then I took each of my children to school. And what I mean by that, obviously being Sunday, you can't take them to school, but you can take them to school on the Mario Kart circuit. And I schooled the bejesus out of them. So much so that I was racing, finishing first, obviously, and then also doing my youngest daughter's race as well for her. So that was that. Took the older two so that they could go off, and then took the dog for a walk in the evening, and that was Father's Day, 2025. A roaring success. Got some much needed things. There was a good few items in my haul of Father's Day gifts that I was like, need it, absolutely need it, definitely need it. Thank you very much. I needed this. So there was a lot of that going on, and just a really, really, really nice day. I sort of had that, when you go to work on a Monday, I was like, do you have a good week? And I was like, I did have a good weekend. I had a very enjoyable Father's Day. Which in some ways, yeah, absolutely. In other ways, I'm a bit like, it's sometimes hit and miss whether that's going to be the case. And I expect in years to come that that's probably not going to be the case, just because there are big gaps between my children. Some of my children are very close together, some of them are very far apart. Obviously, my eldest and my youngest, there's many years between them, and between my eldest and my middle daughter, there's a good few years between them, and that gap is now starting to show itself. So I think as the years go on, there'll be a bit of, don't want to do Father's Day. But then on the flip side, I'm probably doing an injustice there. Let's move on before I say the wrong thing. So, TV. TV is a bit of a weird one at the moment. Me and Leon sat and watched episode 7 and 8 of Bondsman, which finished that series. Episode 7, fairly standard. Episode 8, no surprises, absolutely hands down the best episode of the entire series. Very much a give us a second series, when I think it was probably always going to get a second series. I will say this now. It is definitely going to suffer from second series syndrome, because I think if ever there was a TV show that is going to suffer with that curse, it's this. That might determine whether it gets a third. Also, no mention of it being renewed for a second series, so, just throwing that one out there. Movie-wise, this is what I was saying. I was like, I've got a lot to go through, but I don't think some of the things will take very long. Movie-wise, I finished the director's cut of Watchmen, which is 4 hours long. Few things, and these might not be popular opinions. Number one, I really don't like the animated stuff that's in the director's cut of Watchmen, because it was also in the animated Part 1 and 2 movie, and I didn't like it in that. The only saving grace in the movie, actual movie, is that it's narrated by Gerard Butler, which, in hindsight, just seemed weird. It's a fine enough story. It's kind of an interesting story. It's kind of one we've seen before. It's basic. In a lot of ways, it's basically the original Kratos story from like the first God of War. I just don't understand why it's there. I just don't get it. It's so weird. But honestly, I love the film Watchmen. Even at 3 hours, I would sit down and watch that film like it was a 20-minute episode or something. I never viewed it as a 3-hour movie. I knew it had length to it, but I just... There are bits of action throughout the film, enough to keep you going and keep you entertained, but I think the rest of it's just so well done. It's just I thoroughly enjoy it. I've had the weirdest thought that I saw a picture. It will have been on IMDb, so excuse me for 1 second. IMDb. I saw a picture of the guy that plays Rorschach, and I have the weirdest feeling where's the okay. He's an American actor. He is an American actor. He was in the Bad News Bears. Okay. You so. You have got to be kidding me. I saw a picture of the guy that plays Rorschach on IMDb when I was looking something up. And I was like, do you know something? That guy looks like the bad guy from the live action Tick TV series. He looks like the guy that was in like, it was like Preacher. And he looks like one of the bad guys from the RoboCop reboot, just from the picture of him now. And I was like, but that can't be right. Yep, that's absolutely him. Honestly. So there we go. I watched Watchmen. I enjoyed most of it. Now then, here's a controversial theory. Having watched the animated movie, the 2-part animated movie, and having watched the live action director's cut of Watchmen, my controversial opinion is that I think the animated movie has a better back end. I think the fact, and these are absolute spoilers, I think when the guy Ozymandias, in the animated one, he sends this giant alien to New York to unite the world. In the live action one, he basically blows up New York and blames it on Dr. Manhattan. And the way the animated one ends, I was like, that is a much better ending. Watching the live action version, I was like, I don't think the ending of the live action version sits too well with me. I don't think it really fits. I felt like it played out better in the animated one, which obviously is kind of in hindsight. I think it was like a second bite of the apple. Like they had the opportunity to say, we weren't really on board with that original ending. So let's change it. And I prefer the changes they made. I prefer the way it ended. There's a conversation between Dr. Manhattan and Ozymandias right at the very end. And even that is like a 30-second conversation. I'm like, yeah, that was a good end to things. So yeah, like even that, I was like, that fits better, it feels better than the live action. But like I say, that is very much a hindsight kind of thing. I did watch a new movie. It was animated, I will say this, but was also fucking gorgeous. I watched Predator, Killer of Killers. Best way to describe Predator, Killer of Killers is 3 short stories that culminate in one story. They are set in 3 different time periods. The first one is Vikings, the second one is samurais, and the third one is like the sort of World War II era. One is a Viking going off to avenge her family. The second one is 2 brothers. And the third one is this young lad who wants to be a pilot but an engineer. And it's like these 3 stories that are told separately, but all 3 characters somehow end up all there together at the end, even though there's this time thing. Now, there does seem to be some sort of like they've been frozen, so I think that's how the time thing works, but it has this sort of this massive battle at the end, which is great. 3 different times, 3 different predators, 3 different looking predators, 3 different versions of predators. The predators look fantastic. And then, again, like I say, it culminates in this one giant freaking predator. Honestly, this thing is a freaking masterpiece. It is the truest definition of a chef's kiss. It's gorgeous. The stories are fantastic. The predators are awesome. It's just brilliant. Fantastic from start to finish. It was an absolute delight to watch. I did say to Leanne, I was like, do you know something? What they should do is they should just remake this in live action. That's $1 billion movie right there. I don't know if I said, but it was done by the guy that did Prey. I thought Prey was okay. There's a little nod to Prey right at the end. No spoilers there, but just a great experience from start to finish. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I've recommended it to multiple people since I watched it. It was just great. Obviously, it's often a bold choice to do something that's animated because I think you lose a little bit of your audience, but definitely not a reason not to watch it. If you're not an animated film fan, I would still give it a go. Computer games. A lot of a little, or a little of a lot. I'm in this super weird place with games. And honestly, I'm in a super weird place with a lot of stuff. I finished, like I say, I finished Bondsman, and I just can't seem to settle on something that I want to watch. And if I'm honest, I know the reason why. And the reason is that I'm basically on the cusp of giving up streaming services. I'm so beyond sick and fucking tired of all of them that I'm basically just the straw is going to break the camel's back, and I'm just going to give them all up. For me, Netflix is basically done at this point. I cancelled my Netflix subscription months ago. Yes, Leanne still has a subscription, and yes, I use hers, but I have basically refused to use it now because the adverts are so insistent, so obnoxious, so fucking annoying that I'm like, there's just no point in putting it on. So this evening, when we were looking for something to watch, I was like, oh, we can look at what TV shows there might be on Prime. We can even look at what TV shows there might be on Disney, anything that we started that we haven't finished. But let's face it, there's no point in even checking Netflix. A little bit, I will say this, I think this is self-inflicted. I think it's oversaturation with games. I've got far too many fantastic games all on the go at once. So let's start with the first one, which is Death Stranding. I had absolutely no idea what Death Stranding was. And I think that was part of the charm people find with it. Nobody knows what it is before you play it. And apparently you have to play it to know what it is. So when I had the opportunity to buy the director's cut for less than a tenner, I was like, do you know what? It's Steam Deck verified, so let's do this. Apparently, Steam Deck verified is a loose term these days because a lot of the stuff I've been trying to get working recently needs some sort of fix, and Death Stranding was on that list. Did manage to get it up and running, having deleted a file and got it to revalidate its files, finding that there were 5 crucial files missing and having to basically do a reinstall of the game. However, managed to get it up and running, and I still have no fucking clue what that game's about. You're a delivery person, we know this much. It's like futuristic pizza delivery, but the pizzas are babies. That's the best way it was described to me, and honestly, it does seem to be something like that. There are many elements of the game that haven't been explained so far. I'm starting to think they probably won't be. What I will say is this, it's a Hideo Kojima game. So there was a point where I text Sam to say, oh, by the way, I managed to get Death Stranding working. At this point in time, I am currently watching a cutscene that has been on for 20 minutes. There's always that game out there that the game and the story is more important than actually playing it. So couple of elements that have been quite difficult to swallow with it as a game. I'm hoping those sort of die away the more you get to play. Another one of those games that has absolutely zero direction to it. You can set a marker and be like, oh, go over there. Okay, cool, but if I fall off this cliff, I'm going to die. And the game's like, yeah, you will. Crack on. So there's a lot of that, which I think I kind of knew to expect that. Didn't make that an easy pill to swallow, let's say. However, Claire Obscure Expedition 33 is just a game that's going from strength to strength to strength. Finally decided that maybe it was time to learn how to actually parry in the game, right about the point in time that the game then added an additional technique, which was jump. So now you have 3 different options to avoid enemy attacks. Speaking of 3, I now have 3 characters. A character from the start of the game. I've got two ladies, 2 girls, and 1 boy. One of the ladies can, when you do run, instead of running, she floats. So I find that I use her when I'm out in the world, wandering around, because it looks cool. I think there are some elements of that game that I'm starting to get the hang of. Leveling stuff up, upgrading stuff. Every now and then I'll pick up a better weapon, adding abilities to the characters and things, learning not to just fire your gun left, right and centre and instead use some of your abilities rather than shooting, but don't forget to shoot flying enemies and things like that. It's a gorgeous game. It plays amazing. The only thing I wish it had a little bit more of was very much the same as Death Stranding. I wish it had some sort of direction. I wish you could set a marker and just head towards it. It always feels like I'm going the wrong way, even though you're very rarely going the wrong way. You just feel like you are. What I will say is this, for games that can be a little off-putting at times, spending the entire time you're playing it feeling like you're going the wrong way, and you're not, like I say, it's a little off-putting. I have been dipping in and out of the Precinct, because the Precinct is a lot of fun. Seems to have like a good progression. Like if you do like a full, you pick a patrol to do, foot patrol, speeding violations, road traffic violations, or just general patrolling. If you complete one shift, you do seem to level up off the back of it, certainly at the moment. And the things you can unlock with your levels are, again, like they appear to be quite useful. Seem to unlock vehicles every now and then, and additional weapons and stuff. So it's just fun. Which, where did all the fun go? And a game I dipped into last night because I was like, ooh, I forgot about that. The Yakuza Like a Dragon Hawaii. I now have a boat. It's feeling very Assassin's Creed Black Flag. That was what that game was called, Black Flag? Yeah, let's call it Black Flag. We all know what I mean. So yeah, now I'm sailing around in a boat dressed as a pirate. I do want to say this. I feel that the entire gaming world should have an option where you can basically say, I don't give a shit about the story, and have an option to just skip all story. Because, I'll tell you this much, if there was an option like that on games nowadays, I think I'd pretty much pick it all the time. I just don't have the time to care about the story. I just want to play the game. Can we just play the game? Finally, I have played I have played a lot of Into the Radius 2 because I've modded it to the nines up the wazoo. I have added Indestructible Weapons mod, which only works for about 80% of your weapons. That just makes things confusing. Monster Mags, which means that magazines hold twice as many bullets. What that does actually mean is that you have to carry twice as many bullets, and spoilers, that's one of the issues that I've found. Carrying all that ammo, carrying all the syringes for health and things. If you add to it a mod that allows you to carry a shit ton of stuff, my PC doesn't like it and struggles when you open a bag that's got 60 health syringes and about 2,000 rounds of ammo that it has to remember each individual thing, and it goes, please don't open the bag, because I'm also carrying 5 different weapons and clips for all of them, so there's a lot of like that going on. It's hilarious, but I do wonder if my computer is just going to melt at some point, so I do need to look into whether it's maybe time for a smidge of an upgrade. But yeah, it's fun. I have basically said that I'm going to finish this playthrough, which I think I've got a couple of like the main missions to go, and then I think I'm done. And I think I'm going to move on to Zombie Army VR, because I pre-purchased that to get the discount on it. That is actually that. That is the podcast done and dusted. Sorry if it was a little bit grumbly this week, this time. Obviously, I hope that you can see from the stuff I was talking about. A little bit of a tough one at the moment. Sort of struggling to decide kind of where to go from here, I think is where I'm at the moment. And I think it's making me a little... yeah, don't know. Right. Thank you for listening. And I'll see you next time. So there we go. What do you think of that? Another one done. Another one gone. Sorry for the grumbles. The Yeah, sometimes it kind of needs to be done. Sometimes I do try and keep it under wraps more often than not, but sometimes they slip out. Big thank you for watching. Big thank you for listening. Big thank you for being here. Before you leave us, please do consider like, share, subscribe, and comment. Leave a review. You can leave a review, and check out the website, thecookiecast.com. There we have social media links and an email button, and that way you can get in touch with us. That is it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to this episode of CookieCast.